She stepped over the curb. I knew right then this wasn't going to be quiet. One heel on his gravel, one finger in his face. You think this deed means anything now? The officer blinked, didn't speak, just watched. He didn't flinch, didn't raise a word, just looked at her hand, touching the post that wasn't hers. Not yesterday, not ever. She laughed, loud, sharp. But behind him, the sign stayed still. This line was drawn long before you moved in. He held the envelope, didn't lift it, didn't need to, because silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's just countdown. He kept the garage locked, but not because of what was inside. There wasn't anything valuable in there, at least not to most people. Just a rake, a folded tarp, and an old shovel with the words July 4th, first fence post carved into the handle. The paint had chipped, the metal was dull, but he still cleaned it every December. Same rag, same quiet ritual. Calvin Rhodes never talked about the fence, not even when the HOA asked if he'd consider modernizing the border. He just tilted his head once, like he hadn't heard them, but he had. He always did. Every summer he noticed, the way the mulch line crept 1 inch closer, how a hedge got trimmed a little too far on his side. Comments that weren't exactly confrontational, but landed like testing jabs. He didn't argue, didn't film, didn't send warnings. He waited, and every time he passed that shovel, he glanced at it. Not with nostalgia, not with anger, just a quiet sort of wait, like he was keeping a promise that nobody else remembered. He wasn't the kind of man who acted fast. He was the kind who saw the first crack long before the wall fell. And this wasn't the first time someone tried to take what wasn't theirs, but it would be the last, because silence isn't absence. Sometimes it's history sharpening its edge. It came on a Wednesday, no yelling, no door knock, just paper, taped dead center on the east gate, white sheet, bold font. Obstruction of shared access, violation pending HOA review. Marla didn't need to scream this time. She just needed a printer. The paper flapped once in the breeze, light, harmless. But Calvin didn't touch it. He saw it from the kitchen window, standing behind the sink. Didn't blink, didn't move. The gate she posted it on wasn't even part of the shared path. That gate had been there since '72, long before any HOA, before any subdivisions, before Marla moved in with her clipboard and her passive voice. She placed the tape slowly, wore gloves, took a photo of the notice after she stuck it, like it might end up in a file one day, like she was preparing for court. Calvin watched her walk away. Didn't follow, didn't open the door. He just turned calmly and reached for a drawer. The folder inside was labeled in black ink. Pre-HOA deeds, boundary records. Neatly organized, dated, indexed. He slid the paper notice inside a clear sleeve. No rush, no sound, but his eyes. They held the kind of stillness that waits for patterns to form before striking. At the bottom of the notice, in 6-point font, notice issued by Marla M. Her name, finally, no introductions, no neighborly wave, just authority, manufactured, printed, delivered. She didn't look back, just nodded once, like she'd finished something righteous. But Calvin wasn't angry, not visibly, because this wasn't about emotion. It was about setup. She made her move, on paper, on record, and in doing so, she handed him the first thread, the one he'd pull quietly until her whole side unraveled. You've probably seen something like this before, where someone bends the rules just because they think no one will check. I've been on that side too, quiet, watching, trying to decide whether it's worth stepping in or just walking away. If stories like this help you think things through, you're welcome to stay. They sent the email at 10:04 p.m. Subject line, emergency HOA discussion, shared easement obstruction. The invite list was short, 5 homes. One name stood out, misspelled. Charles Rhodes. Calvin saw it, didn't fix it, just filed it. Wrong names break records, and broken records can't vote. He walked into the room quietly, didn't greet anyone, didn't sit near the front. When Marla started speaking, he clicked his pen. Once and again, then just wrote. She brought photos, printed, stapled, marked with arrows. This, she pointed, is a direct violation of the shared walkway clause. This gate has no recorded exemption. People nodded until someone said, "Why's the board in the photo not showing the lettering?" Marla smiled. "It's not relevant." But it was. The photo had been taken just after noon. The wooden sign above the gate, old, carved, cracked, only showed clearly when the sun hit from the west. Late afternoon, just before dusk. Calvin kept writing. He didn't look angry, didn't even clear his throat. But when a retired systems technician spoke up, well, if it was there before the HOA even existed, wouldn't that override clause 6B? Calvin looked up, met his eyes, held the stare. 3 seconds, then back to the page. Someone near the back shifted in their chair. A woman dabbed a napkin on one of the photo prints, trying to clear off a smear. Underneath, faint wood grain showed, and 3 words, nearly invisible. Recorded 1951, township verified. No one said anything, but Marla's fingers gripped her handbag strap, harder than before. Calvin stood last, didn't speak, just left. The email stayed in his folder, labeled uncorrected name use. The photos, numbered, logged, misleading timestamp noted. Because silence doesn't mean absence, and letting them talk long enough is how he sharpens the blade. This wasn't a meeting, it was the first step onto his field, and they just stepped on it wrong. "Hi, neighbors," it began. "Before activating the irrigation schedule this year, I'd appreciate quick confirmation of fence lines, just to prevent overwatering or overlap. Attached, HOA development sketch from 1978, signed by James T. Holloway. Should align with your lot documents." Every name addressed correctly, except one. "Hi, Maureen, can you verify Lot 14's marker?" It took 7 minutes. Marla's reply was short, clipped, defensive. "This is Marla Wexley. I don't know where Maureen came from. Please correct that." Calvin didn't reply. He just forwarded the original HOA deed, city archive watermark still visible. Maureen Wexley, trust recipient, June 1997. No commentary, no accusation, only facts, plain, heavy. That afternoon, a quiet ping lit up the HOA group chat. A neighbor posted, "Didn't we have a name change thing back then? 1997 or 98? Someone renamed on the trust records?" Marla's typing bubble appeared, paused, then, "No, I moved in 2001, bought it myself. That record must be someone else." 2 minutes passed, then Calvin dropped a scanned image. Aged paper, city seal, clean signature, transferred deed, lot 14, Maureen Wexley. Underneath, one sentence, archive reference, township deed, log 72, B. No one replied, but online presence dropped by half. That weekend, Calvin stapled a copy of the same map to his front gate. Not as warning, just alignment. During the next HOA circle meeting, Marla raised her voice, insisted there was confusion, mislabeling, maybe tampering. Calvin didn't look up. He opened a plain envelope, removed a form with a 1997 postal stamp, passed it to the group, slowly, then turned to Mr. Ellison, former HOA secretary, now half blind but razor sharp. "Do you recognize this signature?" The old man peered, squinted, then nodded. "Maureen, that's her. Sharp lines, like someone cutting through the page." Marla sat down. She didn't speak again that day. Calvin never used her name in conversation, only in documents, because that was the battlefield she chose. He didn't need to raise his voice. He just had to return her to the name she thought no one remembered. By the following Monday, the warning letter arrived, stamped with HOA letterhead, signed by 4 board members. Language clean, decisive. Final notice: remove unauthorized signage or face civil action for violation of shared space agreements. They referenced majority consensus. They quoted neighborhood bylines. They framed Calvin's boundary sign as an unregistered fixture. It looked airtight, calculated. Even Marla smiled when someone passed her the folded copy. But 2 hours later, Calvin replied. Not in the group chat, not in a phone call. He mailed a letter, real envelope, typed, 1 line only. The sign falls under Oregon Code 142, Cultural Earthmark Provision 7B, outside HOA jurisdiction. Attached, a scanned fax, yellowed but sharp. State Resource Authority, 1994. Lot 14, Denton County, contains Cold War structural base, verified 1951, protected. The message hit like a dropped brick. For 5 minutes, the HOA thread was silent. Then someone finally asked, "Wait, that bunker thing's real?" Calvin responded once. 4 words. "I never denied it." That night, HOA's emergency meeting turned glassy. Marla argued, pushed, called it fabricated heritage, said, "No one remembers any bunker." But someone did. A soft voice from the back. Mrs. Lantry, widow. Lived on the street since '68. She stood up, hands trembling, held out a photo. Her father, in uniform, standing by a muddy pit. Behind him, a young maple tree, and a wooden sign. "That's the place," she whispered. "Same tree still grows there?" One man pointed. "Wait, that's the board, right? Same font?" Marla said nothing. The next morning, Calvin didn't attend the follow-up meeting. He didn't send a note, didn't comment online. But the wooden sign, it was sanded, re-stained, bolted higher, centered perfectly between 2 floodlights. That night, the security cam caught movement. A figure scaled the side fence, reached for the sign, and froze. Blinding light snapped on. The figure slipped, ran, dropped a baseball cap. Logo, HOA Denton Committee. Calvin didn't post the clip, didn't make a scene. The next day, the cap arrived at the HOA desk in a plain box. Inside, a handwritten note. "Lost something?" No name, no explanation, just the sound of the final trap snapping shut. At 6:12 the next morning, he walked out alone. No gloves, no noise, just a shovel in one hand and a small brown paper bag in the other. He dug slow, 2 holes, same depth, right along the inside edge of the rear gate. That's where the asters used to bloom. His mother had planted them every spring. A breeze kicked up dust. He didn't look up. Across the yard, a window curtain moved, then stopped. Down the lane, someone pulled down a sign. "Under community review." No one mentioned it, no one asked. He patted the soil flat, leaned back, wiped his forehead with the side of his arm, then pulled from his back pocket a small photo, edges faded, corners warped from sun. An older woman, gray hair tucked back, holding a shovel, smiling beside the wooden sign. He didn't smile, but he looked at her like it meant something, and then, carefully, deliberately, he tore the photo down the center. Let the pieces fall, didn't crush them, didn't burn them, just let the wind carry them. From the chain link fence, a quiet sound, the latch falling, no lock, no snap, just a weight resting. A boy rode by on his bike, maybe 10, maybe less. He slowed down, looked over the gate. "What are you doing, mister?" Calvin didn't turn. He pressed the soil once more, eyes still down. "Digging up something that's been here longer than your granddad," he said. The boy paused, nodded, kept riding. The camera held. 3 seconds, 4. The shovel leaned against the fence. A single aster swayed in the wind. Violet, alive, no music, no closing words, just that flower, and the knowledge that no one would try stepping over again. Final line, whispered as if to no one. Not everyone fights to win. Some just want no one to touch what they kept alive for too long. Some lines aren't drawn with chalk or paint. Some are drawn with memory, like a shovel kept clean for 30 years. A name no longer spoken, but never forgotten. A flower planted in silence, blooming again, without permission. Justice doesn't always look like a gavel. Sometimes it looks like a man who doesn't move until everyone else does. He didn't win by yelling. He didn't lose by waiting. He simply stayed where truth had always stood. There was no speech, no crowd, just the wind, the gate, the soil being pressed down, and a quiet understanding. Some places can't be claimed twice, because the first claim wasn't made in paperwork. It was made in sacrifice, in trust, in the kind of silence that doesn't fade. The land didn't remember who shouted loudest, but it remembered who stayed, who never left, who kept it clean, season after season. Some people hold on, not to fight, but to remind others where not to step again. There are boundaries deeper than fences, older than deeds, quieter than rules, and they only need to be drawn once.